The Road Back, Intercepting, Accelerating Trends, powered by Greenfly. Your presenter is Daniel Kirschner. He's co-founder and CEO at Greenfly. As co-founder and CEO, Daniel works with some of the biggest brands in sports, entertainment, and social causes to help them build brand awareness and increase customer engagement through brand advocacy. He has held positions as president of the Harvard Law Review, senior advisor on internet policy at the FCC, and head of corporate affairs at Activation Blizzard. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Good to be with everybody today. So as discussed, I appreciate the introduction. Today we're going to talk about the road back, intercepting accelerating trends, and we're really going to focus on a survey that went out to all of you, and I think a lot of you guys answered it. This is really recent data, so this is like up to the minute, done in the past couple of weeks. And we got responses from all sorts of sports teams, leagues, governing bodies, other kinds of organizations related to sport. So I'm excited to share the results with you today and then talk about sort of how we're thinking about those results, what we've learned as a company that sort of relates to what we're seeing out there, and really talk about this very unusual transitional period that we're in right now and where we're headed. So our hypothesis is that this sports hiatus is accelerating existing trends. I don't think that's a groundbreaking hypothesis, and I think it's a hypothesis that you've seen all over during this pandemic period. For example, people talk about the acceleration of e-commerce over physical retail and things like that. So we're seeing significant changes in behavior, but they're really accelerating things that the groundwork was already there for. And basically what's happened is the kind of time for development has really been compressed. So where are we today? And this is where I'm going to dig into some of the survey data and then give you guys some observations. So start out here is the return to sport. Are people ready for events to resume even without fans? And you'll see that the answer is a resounding yes. People are ready overwhelmingly, and you can obviously see this in all the preparations and plans and announcement dates, and even some sports already resuming in Europe and even in the United States to a lesser degree. So people are ready. But then we look at, when is it going to go back to totally normal? There you see a much more cautious response. I was actually surprised somewhat by how cautious this is, but you see that the significant majority here think it's going to be, at least 6 months before we return to full attendance. And actually almost a third think it's going to be, it's going to wait until we have a COVID vaccine, which could take a year or longer. So people are very cautious, and there's an assumption that this period of games without fans is not just like, a few weeks, but it's going to be something that's going to last in some form for several months. So we have to be planning for that period in addition to looking beyond that period. When we think about who we're really going to be focused on when fan attendance resumes, not surprisingly, more than half people said season ticket holders, and then the second most common answer was loyal and legacy fans. So people are really focusing on retaining and supporting the most engaged part of their audiences. And that's not just in bringing them back to the stadium, but that's a kind of sentiment that we're seeing a lot these days, especially without having live games. Like, how do you really sustain and serve, for example, season ticket holders, which, as you guys know, is such an important component of the revenue for an organization. So the rise of digital marketing in our new normal, and this is really, where we get to the sort of accelerating trends part. So here you'll see, again, overwhelming majority thinks digital marketing and social media are more important than ever. And, this makes sense. Right now, there's not that much going on. There's not many places to engage. But even going into this period, even when games resume, the importance and relevance of digital marketing and social media are going to be much more acute because people are not going to have that same kind of in-person experience. And also because behaviors have changed so much during this period. So what are people focused on when they think about their digital marketing initiatives right now? And the two biggest answers are saving time, improving efficiency, and faster digital transformation. You get the significant majority if you look at the two of those. In other words, people are feeling the urgency. They got to make these changes now. They might have been planning around a 2 or 3 year time horizon, assuming certain trends. All of a sudden, massive growth and acceleration in social media usage and things like that. And the loss of fans in stadium puts a lot of urgency against this. So people are really feeling that. And then another sort of observation here is physical sponsorship opportunities are evaporating, at least in the near term. So people are going to look to digital to really make up that gap and pick up that slack. And that's really where the focus is going to be. So not only do they really need to accelerate the move to adopting digital and social strategies that are more aggressive and thoughtful, but also they need to look for more revenue opportunities there. And here's something else that's interesting. When people think about what they're doing on digital and social channels, how are they valuing it? You'll see a lot of people are valuing everything that they're doing. Other people are valuing things that are, tagged on posts designed for sponsor promotion or posts on brand channels. But the point is, people really see what they're doing on social digital channels as having a really key brand sponsorship and revenue component, even outside of very specific kind of branded paid content. So really thinking about that much more broadly as delivering sponsor value. So for example, somebody buys an in-stadium logo, a lot of that value is going to show up on the way that logo is reappearing on social media, or a jersey sponsor. So let's talk about the year ahead. So we sort of see three themes in the year ahead. Again, this is a somewhat sad picture of an empty stadium, but I mean, we're looking at a period of nobody at games, or at least a very limited select number at games, not the kind of noises and excitement level that we're used to. Fans not sharing their experiences of attending the events. I think it's something that's often overlooked, is what an accelerator it is to have people who are at an event posting, sharing, talking about that on social media, and really driving a lot more participation in the event outside of people that are physically in the stadium. And then the other issue that we have is a lot of things are returning at once. So there's going to be unbelievable competition among different sports that we've never seen before. It's sort of a sports viewer's dream, but from the perspective of the leagues and teams, it's a challenge, and they're going to have to work to stand out from the crowd. So people are connecting at an individual level. They're building connection with advocates and continue to engage your audience in the long road back. And these are really where we're going to talk about some of the takeaways and some of the things that we've learned. During this pandemic period, people are really engaging very directly with the athletes. Athletes are much more active on social media. Social media platforms are seeing a ton more engagement, and things like obviously the continued use of Instagram stories, the rise of TikTok and things like that are really breaking down and collapsing the separation between athletes and their fans. And so we're seeing a lot of that really direct engagement, really direct people talking to their audience, and really building very strong bonds. I mean, here's obviously this incredible moment recently on social media where you can see people are looking to the athletes themselves to be leaders, to really drive that connection and to really stay engaged when games are not going on. And here's another example of something interesting that's happened during this period. This is actually something that was promoted via Greenfly. You take something like The Last Dance, it's focused again on individual athlete, and you can see that in promoting that, it's not just about putting that out on billboards and things like that, but it's getting people really talking about it on social media. So for ESPN, for example, getting their talent really talking and sharing content related to it, because people are following that talent just as much or even more as they're following the channels themselves. So I think that there's a real recognition of just how important and valuable it is for the athletes for a team to be active on social media. And you'll see, again, overwhelming, especially when you lump together athletes generally, get 70%, more than 2/3. I think it's just valuable just to have them active on social no matter what they're doing, really. And then you get to 90% territory once you say if they're talking about what the team and the league is doing. So that's really powerful. So I want to talk a little bit more about, again, this is a real opportunity of athletes have built this incredibly powerful connection with their fans. And it creates an incredible opportunity for teams to figure out how to engage their athletes through those, engage the fans through those athletes. And what you see is a very large percentage. We're looking at, more than half, the majority of teams and leagues really don't feel that they have the ability to do that. They don't really have, the marketing doesn't have any kind of direct communication with the athletes. There's a lot of concern about athlete motivation and desire. There isn't access to quality media. So this is a huge challenge. You have this incredible opportunity. People are more engaged and excited about athletes than ever. And you have an incredible challenge for teams and leagues to really capitalize on that and to really do something about that. So, one thing we've seen, I want to talk a little bit, briefly about Greenfly. Greenfly is a platform that really connects the athletes with the teams, with the marketing organization, with social media, brings it all together and makes it really possible to work together in a very collaborative way. So here's one of our partners, Paris Saint-Germain. So just by putting, Greenfly into the equation, they have a 2,000% increase in their addressable social audience, because they're not only able to reach their direct organic audience, but they're able to really tap in and engage with the audience of their athletes. And all these kinds of challenges, when you have a real strong direct connection with your athletes and you have a tool like Greenfly or something like that, all these kinds of concerns about them being distanced and not engaged really drop away. So athletes in the year or so that we've worked with Pre-Saint Germain, they've actually downloaded and distributed 11,000 pieces of content, and that includes tons of pieces of content by people that you think would be difficult to really be able to engage, like Neymar, Mbappe, household names. And overall, just by, again, creating that connection, solving that problem, you see an 85% lift in a single year in Instagram engagement. And I really like this quote from Anthony Baca here, where he says, the players are now our marketing partners. Like, that's the key. You know, these players have incredible audiences. You know, they have an incredible connection with their fans. But how do you, as a team, a league, a sports organization, a brand, like, how do you really make use of that? And it's by really being able to collaborate with them and work with them on content and really make them marketing partners in a way that's going to be beneficial to everybody. So this is just a sort of, brief kind of illustration of, of that kind of magnification effect. So PSG, obviously, incredibly popular team. They've got, that would be the envy of almost every U.S. Sports organization, the number of followers they have. But then their average player has almost 9 million followers on Instagram. I mean, this is an incredible magnifying effect. So when you take it all together, you've got 29 players, and all of a sudden you go from 80 million fans to 400 million fans, and a much higher organic reach level. So really a great expansion of the total addressable audience in a way that's really going to be powerful and going to be able to enable an organization like PSG to take advantage of that and to really build the value. So for example, a jersey sponsorship in the context of being able to directly provide content and communicate with athletes who are going to share that material on their social media adds tremendous value to that sponsorship in a way that can be quantified. Obviously we have analytics tools, but a way that, can be quantified in all sorts of ways and shown back to the brand and really provide a lot of sponsorship value, even when people, again, are not in stadium. So here's a quote that really talks about kind of the barriers, this distance, and this is really what we've seen. And again, you see all these kinds of trends in the survey data that we looked at, which is that when you break down the barrier between an athlete and a fan and you really make that connection much stronger, you're creating a lot more commercial opportunity. And the value in having fans relate to their favorite players is immeasurable. And so the goal for any kind of organization outside the athletes themselves is to figure out how to really be a part of that and really make the athletes part of their ability to, connect directly with the fans. So just a few kind of, summary, since we're almost out of time here on the road ahead. Again, really this notion of this is an acceleration of existing trends. We're basically jumped 2 or even 3 years ahead in the level of social media engagement, the comfort that athletes have, working on social media, the importance of digital and social channels for teams and leagues. So this is really accelerated, and now is the time for more digital marketing and digital transformation. You cannot wait. Everything's accelerated. You've basically, everything's kind of jumped ahead a few years, and so really there's incredible urgency. And there's a lot of opportunity with that urgency. I mean, what's happened is this incredibly strong connection between athletes and fans, and you can leverage social media to stay connected and really build these strong connections. It's really important to build those connections with the athletes, between the athletes and the league, between the athletes and the teams, so that those connections can really be used to communicate. And so that's what we do. We enable organizations to transform advocates into brand builders, to keep them personally connected to fans. And I'd love to take questions, to talk about this further. I think the best thing to do would be if you visit our Greenfly booth on the exhibitor hall in the Horizon Summit. Love to engage and answer any questions and talk to folks. We also have a guide, 120 ways to engage fans when there are no games. You can find on our website a ton of the things in there. Most of it is really relevant for a period when there are games, but there are no fans at the games. Thank you guys so much for your time.